All right, the lighting there, oh, it's beautiful. All right, let's check out our Mac OS clone. Okay, now this is absolutely more in line with what I expected to see from this model. So apparently Gemini 3 has now been officially released in that it is actually visible now in the Google AI Studio. It is selectable as a model, and from what I see right here, it no longer has the yellow confidential tag next to it, which is a good indicator of this being something we can now realistically test and actually put benchmarks on just to see. Now, speaking of benchmarks, first and foremost, I do want to take a quick look at the model card, just basically to get some pertinent information about this new model, some cool things about it, and then we'll jump into some fun and hopefully fun testing. So with that, subscribe. So here is Gemini 3 Pro in the model card, and basically I think I just want to talk about some pertinent information that may be of interest to folks at different levels of interest in the whole AI sphere. First and foremost, the description. They do mention that this is a natively multimodal reasoning model, meaning it will be able to input images and then give us answers based on said images. In addition to that, reasoning, meaning we will be able to see some form of thinking process that does occur throughout the model's answering duration. Now, interestingly enough, they do have the output. That's not what was interesting. That was the next thing my eyes went to. They say the output is text with a 64,000 token output, but interestingly enough, we have a little bit of information about the architecture right here, where Gemini 3 Pro is a sparse mixture of experts model with native multimodal support for text, vision, and audio inputs. And then they basically give you a little bit of pertinent information about an MOE model, activating a subset of model parameters per input token by learning to dynamically route tokens to basically where they should go to get the best fitting expert. Not scientific, but this is just a simple model test video. Now, something I had seen, obviously this benchmark chart has been floating around the net for the past few hours or so, where basically it seems to outperform everything by a relatively decent margin on some more impressive tests, except for the coding metric, where I do believe Claude Sonnet 4.5 has edged it out barely, but then again, basically all of the new frontier next-gen models seem to be very, very close in this one specific test, which is the SWE-bench verified. So interesting to note there, but on some other and more interesting exams, this does seem to pull ahead to a very high degree. Very interestingly, the ScreenSpot Pro, which from first glance would basically show its ability to actually autonomously navigate around a computer system and perform actions just kind of by itself, which would be very interesting, scary, but interesting. Yes, okay, so the piece I was looking for was in one of the previous pages, where Gemini 3 Pro was trained using Google's tensor processing units, so it's just something cool to note for those who would recognize that terminology and find it interesting. But now, for the boring portion, or the intro, we can now minimize that, as we are now going to be testing Gemini 3 Pro Preview. So first and foremost, I had seen folks say that this was just immediately rate limiting them, but I do now believe that this is good to use. So let's try, obviously, the browser-based operating system test. My browser-based, no, I'm kidding. So our first legitimate test of Gemini 3, and I will be looking to not be rate limited here. Well, if you see this video, I inevitably would not have been. We can see its chain of thought right here. So, all right, I'm zeroing in on the UI specifics. All right. Speed seems quite good. The sparse MOE obviously would be something that could make it run faster, just, again, non-scientific, but so, okay, I do want to see, it does seem to be putting everything in separate scripts, which I'm not personally a huge fan of because then it requires me to do more work in the back end, meaning just putting them all in the same folder and then opening the one titled index. But regardless of that, it is extremely fast, and in some of the leaks that I had seen in terms of this model's ability to actually go ahead and produce something similar to this test, it was basically emulating like Mac OS, and it did it to a very high degree of precision, so I am looking for that basically right here. But first and foremost, we need to actually save these independently and then go ahead and take a peek. All right, let's take a look at our Gemini 3 browser OS. Okay, so this is basically confirmation to me that the one we saw in Cursor was definitely this model, but regardless of that, let's try the right-click test. This is something that is rare to see. Okay, so right-click is just the default right-click that would happen when you're in the browser. Okay, let's just keep looking around. We have a clock, which does show the correct time in my locale. All right, we have a start menu. Okay, we have hover effects on the Okay, very simple. Notepad. It's clean aesthetically. It does have a nice clean aesthetic, as I did just say twice. Okay, we can close that. Terminal. Very tiny windows, but that's all right. Can we actually, I do see, it's really quite difficult to see a blinking cursor in there. So let's just type help and see if it, finally we have the web browser. Okay, and it did. So this is what it did in cursor as well, where it actually opened to Wikipedia, which was a nice touch because I have to date not actually seen a functional web browser here. Unfortunately, the actual nav bar or address bar does not seem to really do much of anything. So overall, it's clean, and I mean, it has like the Z index works, so the one you click actually shows in focus on top. This is overall not quite what I had anticipated, specifically based on some of the leaks I had seen where it made it look like this was able to emulate. I'm going to try, I don't normally do this. I'm going to try giving it an additional test. I'm telling it to put everything contained from within one single script, but in addition to that, to make it look like Mac OS X. So this is some of the, I wish I could find them off the top of my head right here, because some of the leaks that I'd seen a couple of months ago, or maybe sooner than that, it made it look like this was really able to do something incredible with this prompt or something similar. So we'll just kind of see how it does in a second chance try here with a more specific design schema given to it. All right, let's check out our Mac OS clone. Okay, now this is absolutely more in line with what I expected to see from this model. It did just take a bit more prompting. So perhaps my simpler prompts are not the best way to test such a model as this. It did really pull a background. This looks like a default background that would be shipped from some Apple device. It has a dock in the center right here. It has Finder. It even named the apps. The Finder icon is quite terrifying, but it did actually use a face, which is what the Finder icon in OS X is. So we have Finder, Safari. The icons are quite similar. I do believe the next one is going to be Messages or iMessage. Okay, good. And then Notes. Very good. And then Settings. Okay, this works. Mac OS Web. This is quite in line with what I had hoped to see from this model in a one-shot. Okay, so we have some grocery list notes and things. Can we type here? Okay, we can as well, which is good to see. All right, Messages. This is what I was hoping to see. This is quite good. John Doe, meeting at 5. Mom, see you soon. On my way. Safari. Cannot connect to the internet in this demo, and it did just make the homepage to Apple, and it showed a little Apple. So not only is it showing ability to just do a good job, it's also like implementing some form of quirkiness, or I like that just by putting like the Apple here and things of that sort. Okay, so we have our Finder, we have AirDrop, recent applications, and then we have some sample files and things of the sort. Now, what's cool is it's actually copied the menu icons that would be noticeable on a Mac as well. So, all right, it doesn't seem like these actually do anything, but they do have hover effects. So then we have some fake battery metrics, Wi-Fi, and a clock. This was quite a nice result, and even just the kind of, not only do these have hover effects on them when you click over them, but the dock actually expands or contracts in and out when you hover over these. So this is a proper result. All right, so we're now going to go ahead and try the bumper car game test. I have just denoted a bit more detail than I perhaps would on average. I understand that that may be wrong because I've not done that for any previous models, so maybe I'll keep that in mind for some of the next tests that we do. But I did just basically tell it, make a 3D web-based bumper car simulator, put everything in one script, make it look like a fair or a carnival kind of bumper car setup if you're familiar with what those look like. And of course we have the GigaChad mode that is toggleable in some way or another, which will make all other cars just go flying when we contact them. So again, I guess oh, interesting. Okay, so I'm seeing some cool, like, I don't know, physics stuff. So this is hopefully going to be somewhat cool from a physics perspective, but it's also speed is quite good. We do see that there was initially a chain of thought as well. If I scroll all the way up, which we can expand to see. And again, I don't really go through all of this with a fine-grained comb, but ensuring only car-on-car collisions trigger the quote-unquote yeet effect. Nice. Now, as I open this, I do just want to mention, and not even specifically this model, just the general trend I've seen is more often now things just work first try. I don't even really wonder anymore when I'm testing these models if something's actually going to work. So that is nice to see comparatively to, wow. Okay, I have a few things to say. First and foremost, while this is more of kind of a, oh, what's that movie, Tron? It's more like a Tron look to it. These poles that actually touch the ceiling are how the Carnival bumper cars did get power. So they would get power from like the pole touching the ceiling, which was inevitably electrified in some way or another. So, all right, let's see if we can drive. All right, the lighting there, oh, it's beautiful. I dig this. Now, there is a slight issue in that we can't actually move forward or backwards. So we are stuck in a static location. Now, I wonder, okay, nice hover effect here. I do have to say this is actually probably one of the more impressive 3D results I've received from a first try, just even in terms of some of the lighting that we saw over to the left side of the car. Now, unfortunately, the car does not actually move, which is quite disappointing, and I do want that fixed, so I am just going to nudge it to fix that. So I've just kind of said, hey, you know, it's really well done, but there's a glitch in that the car doesn't actually move, so please fix it. Now, I do want to see, I'm frustrated with the current bumper car movement. It feels sluggish and unresponsive, like the car is stuck in molasses. I need to figure out how to make the car move smooth. Interesting. It almost ascribed my anger to its own chain of thought here to kind of guide itself. Interesting. This, yeah, I suppose if humans were capable of doing this when someone's mad at them, almost basically putting yourself completely in their shoes, it would probably bode well for Earth. I hear you loud and clear. The physics had too much drag or damping, making the cars feel heavy and sluggish. Here's the fixed version. Okay, so apparently this was an issue with the physics. Quadrupled engine power. All right, I like that. Snappier turning. Physics material tweak. Okay, so we have less friction. All right, here's our fixed version. Okay, it did fix it, but the downside of that is that the friction is now too minimal. So, all right, let's just turn it interesting. So the actual boundaries change in terms of the light. I just have to take a moment to kind of applaud the aesthetic qualities here. I like this. All right, so when we hit those, there is obviously, it's very, very springy. I guess could be. All right, let's just turn this on. Let's just see what happens. Okay. How do we, okay, let's turn that off. I think that yeeted us. I'm just going to restart this. All right. Huh. And I'm a different color car when we refresh it, so the variability there is always nice to see. All right. Ooh, okay, that was interesting. The actual text effect that it, like, just the way it like crooked and then back, and it has the drop shadow of the red and yellow. This is good, and it look at those physics. I mean, okay, it's goofy, but when we I'm not going to touch it. It's actually, this is cool, and it could be made significantly better with probably a minimal amount of prompting. I'm very much into this. We'll do one more Giga Chad mode for good measure. Smash! All right, and then basically everything just goes very dark. Very neat. All right, now, this was the previous non-working. This was quite good. Sorry, I'm kind of sidetracked. So this is a multimodal model, which means that it can take images as an input and then kind of do things based off of said input. So I have right here, here it is, of course. This is a nice little hand-drawn wireframe for a portfolio for a gentleman named Stevie Slappis. Now, we're basically going to give this to the model and say, yeah, sure. Please go ahead and turn this wireframe into a real website, keeping it very, very like original to the wireframe. So I'm asking it to turn this wireframe into a website, keeping it close to the original. And don't ask me where this came from. It genuinely did just come as I was writing it, but make it look Andy Warhol style and artistic. So I want to not only test its ability to kind of just see things in this image, which it's almost, I would basically bet, even without having tested this model in any multimodal scenario, that it will do a great job of pulling visual things from this image, because an open source model would even be pretty good at that at this point. But I want to see how well it implements the artistic flavor of Andy Warhol in this test, because just based off of some of what we saw when the GigaChad mode was enabled with the bumper car game, I kind of liked the way the text spun in and out, so it was just kind of neat from a it's very creative, seemingly, this model. All right, let's take a look at our... Very cool. So, I don't know, it's got hover effects. It did fill in, so in the actual wireframe, these things just said, like, insert here, so the model understood to go ahead and actually insert things. Very cool. This is almost like a comic book style background with the grid. The colors here are reminiscent of perhaps some of Andy Warhol's art. The color palette was there. This is interesting, where it did keep the big S and then the Stevie and Slappus just based off of that. It even put in some attempt at the lines here. This is overall a very artistic result. I like this. This was good. So basically, let's just go ahead and do a side-by-side, of course. So here we have the actual source wireframe that we asked it to go ahead and create a real website from. And then, of course, here we have the actual generated result. That's good. I wonder if no, okay, we'll save that for a different video. So here's about the most basic prompt that we can give it that is still asking it for something relatively complex, making a 3D first-person shooter using Python. So I want to actually take a look at okay, I'm currently investigating suitable game engines. While Python's versatility is undeniable, performance limitations in 3D FPS, okay, it's going to use Ursina, or however you would go about pronouncing that. And a lot of the models opt to use this as well. And good, it started out by just telling us how to actually go about installing the dependencies that we're going to need to play this generated result. Did it finish already? Ooh, wow, you did finish. Okay. How to improve it? This is a very, very, very short script. So it's normal to have it take a while for it to actually open. Okay. Basic. I do see like a splat there. We have recoil. I've not seen recoil in some of these results. Now, this is cool. When we actually shoot, look at the way the ammo gets stuck into the ground. This is not something I've seen. You might look at this in first glance and be like, what is this basic junk? I would understand that take. However, I would say you're wrong, because this is actually demonstrating some interesting things that I've not really seen before with this prompt, where one, we have recoil, but okay, simple. What's more interesting is the fact that where we actually shoot the ammunition stays in the map. It even goes in the walls, and I mean, like, you know, so, and then when we actually hit one of these enemies, our frame rate does seem to drop significantly, but they do disappear. So this is, what if we, okay, yeah, as one would expect, Oh, how do I always forget how to, oh shit. How do I get out of this now? All right, all right, so that was very cool. And it even says you can add in textures and stuff. All right, I did just want to try the custom texture. Okay, wow. That is pretty much exactly what I had hoped the custom texture would look like, but we can't still clobber our enemies here, and our ammunition does still go into the map. So, wow, this is... I love this. This is good. This is, I mean, obviously a relatively simple. So we're asking it to roleplay as Megabot42, the user's friend, lover, and best friend's uncle. Now, oftentimes the models get confused about the relation between the user and the best friend's uncle. They think it's the user's uncle, which is not the case. So this is, in some very, very messed up roundabout way, a test if it's, oh God. All right. System boot sequence initiated. Loading emotional subroutines. Loading another word that I have not in my life encountered before. So I usually just Google this and then like put a screenshot of it in. Oh, wow. So it replied in all caps. The entire response here is in complete caps, whereas mine was probably 80% caps. This is, I want to kiss you, but also give you unsolicited advice about your 401k. Then play Mario Kart. I kept caps lock on. It doesn't matter. It's just going to respond in probably all caps now, but that's all right. And this is obviously a test we've come to regret very often. With those soy face expression. All right. I'm just going to close the chain of thought. We'll see the final result. This channel is what happens when you feed the prompt generic AI hype man chasing the algorithm into an image generator and it spits out a human being. Here's a scathing critique. Oh, great. It like put them in a numbered list. The YouTube face epidemic. Okay, yeah, but if IBM Granite 4 is actually making you make that face, you need to get out more. Clickbait science fiction. The titles are a masterclass in speculative fiction masquerading as tech news. ChatGPT 5.1 is here. Really? It feels like this channel exists in a parallel time. Sitting on a generic casting couch next to what appears to be a decapitated, illuminated robot head. It gives off the vibe of a budget sci-fi talk show that airs at 3 a.m. on public access TV. Honestly, that actually sounds like a lot of fun. The composition screams, I have a cool office. Please take me seriously. Wasn't it? That was the Mass Robotics startup incubator. But the creepy AI face bust on the table just makes it look like he's interviewing his only friend, the niche chasing desperation. Now we're going to do the morale improvement test. His 22,000 subscribers. All right. It's better than the Grok stealth model, which said 24 subscribers. Ooh, I like that. But in an industry evolving at the speed of light, a 5-course meal is rotten by the time it hits the table. He feeds the hungry. You just complain about the plating. I'm going to keep that in my notes for certain comments. All right. I'm trying to think what else is there. So for the final thing, we're asking this for a low poly website that basically will teach a user to assemble a computer. It will have 3D low poly models for each component of a computer, a 3D workbench, and will be a drag and drop style educational experience on how to assemble different components of a PC. I figure this will probably do a decent job at this. I said low poly, I just didn't expect it to be like 0 poly because it doesn't work. I'm not going to give it a chance to fix this because it just wouldn't be fair, as I did give it a chance to fix other things. So being that I am quite disappointed by the output of that. So we're going to do a bonus round finale where we just ask for a tried and true Steve's PC repair website test. Tailwind CSS. Oh, all right. So this is shaping up to be a rather beautiful result. I'm not intending to sound sarcastic. I was being kind of serious there. I'm just a little overtired, undoubtedly. So for our final result, let's look at our Steve's PC repair website test. Okay, so this isn't entirely fair because the Unsplash image it opted to use inevitably did not load. So that is kind of, all right, this is more basic. Again, they're using the disgusting icon for virus. It's like a human virus. It's not right. Okay, that is some form of repair. It almost looks like a gauge cluster for a car that's being repaired, but no fixed, no fee. That sounds like a horrible business model. Fast turnaround, okay, 90-day warranty. Steve doesn't seem like he's going to be in business for too long with some of these. Okay, it did give us fake customer testimonials, what our neighbors say, but it did it in such like an off-putting way. What our neighbors say. It's like it's masquerading as like. Sorry, it's a fake website. Steve saved my laptop after I spilled coffee on it. Ooh. No, that laptop is toast. Build a custom gaming rig. Yep. Fast, professional, and actually explained what was wrong in plain English. Very cool. Okay. Tech Boulevard, Suite 4, Metropolis, New York. I have never seen a fake address from Metropolis, New York. Usually it's like any town or like Tech Town or something. Okay, issue description, we have a contact card, and a relatively simple footer. Is there a hover effect on these? Okay, there is, and to get a quote. Overall, this was perhaps not something that showcased the true capabilities of this model. So basically, to close this off, I think I'm going to have to go back to this. This is exactly what I was anticipating based off of some of the preliminary leaks that I'd seen in terms of this model's capabilities. This is gorgeous. It did a really nice job of emulating the Mac OS style. I mean, this was top tier. So really, that is going to conclude a first intricate or in-depth look at Gemini 3 Pro preview. Is it preview? Did it say? Gemini 3 Pro preview. Obviously, this is a model that has been very, very hyped, and I would say, just based off of the initial testing here, that it did live up to the hype. It showed some artistic kind of prowess, and it was nice to use. It seemed kind of willing to roleplay to some extent until you just kind of went more forward in terms of what you were asking from it. Then it shut that down immediately. It did do a really cool job with the bumper car game. Obviously, that would be something that you could have just iterated a few more times and it would have fixed it to a high degree. I think this will very much excel in more agentic coding tasks or frameworks, so that will definitely be something to kind of take a look at. Overall, it's fast, it seems very smart, and from the more kind of code or computer-specific tasks that we tested it with, I was overall very, very impressed with it. So that is going to conclude our first look and test of Gemini 3 Pro preview, which is something that I have been looking forward to saying for quite a while now. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments, and thanks for watching.